Abandoned among the ruins. The ash fell like forgotten memories, coating the skeletal remains of a once magnificent civilization. Each flake carried the weight of extinction, settling on twisted metal and crumbling stone that had once housed a thriving alien society. Now it was nothing but a graveyard, silent, desolate, and haunted by ghosts that existed only in the whispers of the toxic wind. Nemira watched the ash through half-lidded eyes, her violet skin dulled by pain and exhaustion. 3 days had passed since her family had brought her to this sacred burial ground, since they had performed the rituals meant to honor her passage into ancestral memory. 3 days since they had abandoned her, still breathing among the dead. "It is mercy," her father had whispered, his many-faceted eyes refusing to meet hers. "To live as you are broken, dependent, is no life for a Vidari. Our ancestors will welcome you." But the ancestors hadn't come. Only silence, hunger, and the biting cold of night spent alone among ruins. Nemira's useless legs lay splayed beneath her, motionless since the mining accident 5 cycles ago. The Vidari valued physical perfection above all else. A paralyzed daughter was a burden they could not bear, an embarrassment they would not tolerate. A distant crash jolted her from bitter memories. Something moved among the ruins, not the mechanical skitters of the defense drones that sometimes prowled the city's edge, but something larger, more deliberate. Nemira's heart hammered against her ribcage. She pressed herself deeper into the alcove where she had dragged herself, fingers digging into the cracked stone. Footsteps heavy and measured. Then a silhouette against the ashen sky, broad-shouldered and bipedal but not Vidari. The figure wore an environmental suit with a battered helmet, moving cautiously through the debris, pausing occasionally to scan the surroundings with some kind of handheld device. Human, she had seen their kind before in trading outposts on the system's edge. Dangerous scavengers who picked through the bones of dead worlds, taking whatever wasn't nailed down. This one carried a pack heavy with salvage, a pulse rifle slung across his back. Nemira held her breath, willing herself to become one with the shadows. The human moved closer, head tilted as if listening. The scanner in his hand beeped softly. He turned, helmet aimed directly at her hiding place. She could run, no, she couldn't. That was the cruel joke of her existence now. She could only wait as the human approached, steps slowing as he neared her alcove. The scanner beeped more insistently. He crouched, helmet inches from the opening. "Well," came a voice, filtered through external speakers but unmistakably male. "You're not what I expected to find." The helmet's faceplate depolarized, revealing a weathered human face, dark skin marked with scars, eyes the color of molten copper, close-cropped black hair peppered with gray. Nemira hissed, baring her fangs in warning, though she knew the gesture was empty. She couldn't fight, couldn't flee. "Easy," the human said, raising his hands in a universal gesture of peace. Not looking for trouble. He set down his scanner and reached for his canteen, offering it to her. Water, clean, not poisoned. Nemira stared at the canteen, then at him. Her throat burned with thirst, but pride kept her immobile. "Suit yourself," he sighed, setting the canteen within her reach. He glanced at her legs, nodding their unnatural position. Understanding dawned in his eyes. "You're hurt." "Not hurt," Nemira managed in halting standard, the trade language of the sector. "Broken, forever broken." The human's expression shifted, something dark and angry flashing across his features. "And they left you here to die." It wasn't a question. Nemira looked away, unwilling to let this stranger see the shame burning in her eyes. The man was silent for a long moment, then he cursed softly, words his translator didn't catch. "My name is Dominic," he said finally. "Dominic Reeves." She didn't respond, staring resolutely at the ground. "Storm's coming," Dominic continued, gesturing to the horizon where clouds the color of bruised flesh gathered. "Acid rain, from the looks of it. You can't stay here." "Go," Nemira said flatly. "Leave me." "Not happening," his voice hardened. "I've left too many behind already." Before she could protest, he was moving into her space, gentle but firm as he wrapped her in the thermal blanket from his pack. Nemira fought weakly, hissing and clawing at his armored suit, but exhaustion and hunger had sapped her strength. "You fight all you want later," Dominic grunted, lifting her into his arms. "Right now, we need shelter." The world tilted sickeningly as he carried her from the alcove. Nemira's head spun, black spots dancing at the edges of her vision. The sky above was darkening rapidly, the first fat drops of acid rain hissing as they struck the ruins. Dominic quickened his pace, moving with surprising grace for a human bearing her weight. There, he said, nodding toward what had once been a maintenance bunker, its reinforced structure still largely intact. That'll hold against the storm. Inside, the air was stale but dry. Dominic set her down carefully against a wall before securing the door against the gathering fury outside. Rain hammered the structure, a sound like angry fists demanding entry. He activated a portable heater, its soft glow pushing back the darkness. Why? Namira asked as he busied himself setting up camp. Why help? Dominic paused, something haunted passing across his face. Because no one should die alone in the dark. He resumed his work, not meeting her eyes. My crew, my family, they died that way while I was away, couldn't get back in time. Outside, the storm raged. Inside, a fragile silence stretched between them, alien and human, each broken in their own way. Namira, she said finally, my name is Namira. Dominic looked up, a ghost of a smile touching his lips. Hello, Namira. The next days passed in a blur of pain and adjustment. Dominic treated her wounds with steady hands and medical supplies from his pack. He built a crude travois to transport her when they needed to move, fashioned a sled from salvaged materials to help her maneuver short distances on her own. Small dignities that meant everything. At night, when the cold crept in despite the heater, Dominic told her stories of Earth, of oceans and forests and sprawling cities where people of all abilities were valued. Namira didn't believe him, couldn't, but she listened anyway, letting his deep voice wash over her. My people believe strength is everything, she told him on the fourth night, watching shadows dance across the ceiling. To need help is to be worthless. Then your people are wrong, Dominic said simply, checking the bandages on her pressure sores. Where I come from, we learned a long time ago that survival means helping each other. No one makes it alone. You are alone, she pointed out. Pain flashed across his face, not by choice. As days turned to weeks, Namira found herself watching Dominic with growing curiosity. He moved through the ruins with purpose, salvaging materials, setting up perimeter alarms, defending their shelter against the occasional drone or desperate scavenger. Despite her useless legs, he never treated her as a burden, instead teaching her to repair equipment, to monitor communications, to be useful. One night, as acid rain pounded their shelter, Dominic returned from a salvage run with something clutched in his arms, a battered neural interface with Vidari markings. Found it in what looked like a medical facility, he explained, setting it carefully beside her. It's damaged, but maybe we can repair it. Namira's fingers trembled as she touched the device. Among her people, such technology was used to control exoskeletons, to allow the injured to move again. Hope, dangerous, fragile hope, bloomed in her chest for the first time since the accident. It won't work, she said, trying to crush that hope before it destroyed her. Too damaged. And even if it wasn't, we would need an exoframe designed for Vidari physiology. Dominic's eyes gleamed with determination. There's a black market outpost 3 days' journey from here. If anyone has what we need, they will. Too dangerous, Namira protested. Raiders' radiation zones. I've survived worse, Dominic cut her off, his expression softening as he looked at her. You deserve a chance, Namira, everyone does. That night, as Dominic slept, Namira watched him, this strange human who had found her among the dead and refused to leave her there. She didn't understand him, this creature from another world who risked his life for someone not even her own family would save. What she did understand, as she drifted to sleep with the neural interface clutched to her chest, was that for the first time since being abandoned in that alien graveyard, she didn't want to die. She wanted to live, to stand, to walk, to see what else the universe might hold beyond the cruel limitations of her people's beliefs. Healing among the stars. Dawn broke across the ruins, painting the broken city in washes of crimson and gold. Namira watched from the doorway of their shelter as Dominic made final preparations for his journey. His movements were efficient, precise, checking weapons, securing rations, confirming coordinates on his battered nav system. 3 days to the black market, he had said. 3 days there, unknown time to find what they needed, 3 days back. A week, maybe more, that she would be alone. Remember what I showed you, Dominic said, kneeling beside her. Defense protocols, communication channels if anything happens. I seal the shelter and activate the perimeter alarms, Namira finished. I know. His copper eyes searched her face. I'll come back. She wanted to believe him, part of her did, but experience had taught her harsh lessons about hope and promises. If you don't, I understand, it's too dangerous. Dominic's jaw tightened. He reached out, hesitating briefly before resting his hand on her shoulder, a gesture that had become familiar between them, bridging the gap between their different species. "I'm coming back," he repeated, voice firm. "I've lost too many people, I won't lose you too." Before she could respond, he was gone, a silhouette against the rising sun, swallowed by the ruins. Nemira watched until she couldn't see him anymore, then dragged herself back inside to begin the long wait. Days stretched into a blur of monotony and fear. Nemira maintained their shelter, repaired equipment, monitored communications as Dominic had taught her. At night, she studied the neural interface, fingers tracing its damaged circuits, mind racing with possibilities. If it could be repaired, if Dominic found a compatible exoframe, she might walk again. The thought was terrifying in its intensity. On the fifth day, a storm hit, not acid rain this time, but something worse. Wind howled through the ruins, carrying radiation and toxic particulates. The shelter's walls groaned under the assault. Nemira activated additional seals, praying they would hold. Outside, something screamed, mechanical or organic, she couldn't tell. She clutched her makeshift weapon tighter and waited for dawn. By the eighth day, Nemira knew something had gone wrong. Dominic should have returned, or at least contacted her through the emergency channel. Each hour that passed deepened her certainty that he wasn't coming back, captured, killed, or simply gone, having realized she wasn't worth the risk. She couldn't blame him. What was she but a burden, a broken thing abandoned by her own people, kept alive by a stranger's inexplicable kindness? Without Dominic, she would die here slowly. The thought didn't frighten her as much as it once had. At least she wouldn't die alone in the dark, he had given her that much. On the 10th day, as twilight painted the ruins in shades of purple and blue, the perimeter alarm shrieked to life. Nemira dragged herself to the monitoring station, heart hammering against her ribs. The screen showed a single figure approaching, stumbling, uneven steps that spoke of injury or exhaustion. "Dominic." She activated the exterior camera. It was him, but barely. Blood darkened the left side of his environmental suit. He clutched a large package to his chest with one arm while the other hung limp at his side. Behind him, the ash was disturbed. He was being followed. Nemira hit the door. "Release, Dominic." He looked up at her voice, relief flooding his battered face. With a final surge of effort, he staggered into the shelter. Nemira sealed the door behind him, activating the reinforced locks just as something heavy slammed against the metal. Outside, voices cursed in several languages. "Raiders," Dominic gasped, collapsing to his knees. "Followed me from the market." He pushed the package toward her. "Got it, got what you need." Then his eyes rolled back and he crumpled to the floor. The next hours were a nightmare of blood and desperation. Nemira dragged herself to Dominic's side, using her knowledge of human physiology, limited though it was, to assess his injuries. Plasma burned to the shoulder, deep laceration across his ribcage, various contusions. He had lost too much blood. Working with frantic determination, she cleaned and bandaged his wounds, administered antibiotics and painkillers from their dwindling medical supplies. Outside, the raiders continued their assault, testing the shelter's defenses. The walls would hold for now, but not forever. "Don't die," Nemira whispered, pressing a cold compress to Dominic's fevered brow. "Please don't die for me." Time blurred. Nemira kept vigil, changing bandages, monitoring vitals, defending their shelter. When Dominic's fever broke on the second day, she wept with relief, her forehead pressed against his chest, feeling the steady rhythm of his heart. "You're crying purple tears," were his first words, voice rough with pain. "It's beautiful." She jerked back, embarrassed. "You're delirious." "Probably," he smiled weakly. "Did you open it?" Nemira glanced at the package, still sealed where he had dropped it. "No, I was busy keeping you alive." With shaking hands, Dominic reached for the package. Time to see if it was worth it. Inside lay an exoframe, not Vidari standard issue, but something more elegant, more advanced. Its sleek lines and articulated joints promised not just mobility but grace. Beside it was a repaired neural interface, professionally modified to work with the frame. How? Nemira breathed, fingers hovering over the technology that represented freedom. "This must have cost." "Everything I had," Dominic confirmed, "and a favor I'll be paying off for years, but it'll work." His eyes met hers, fierce with determination. "You'll walk again." The integration was painful, neural pathways dormant for years suddenly awakening as the interface bonded with her nervous system. Dominic talked her through it, his voice a steady anchor as pain threatened to drag her under. When it was done, he helped secure the exoframe to her lower body. its adaptive technology conforming to her alien physiology. "Ready?" he asked, supporting her weight as she sat at the edge of her bed. Nemira nodded, though terror and hope warred within her. Slowly, concentrating on the mental commands Dominic had explained, she activated the frame. Her legs moved. A sound escaped her half-sob, half-laugh as she stood for the first time in 5 years. The exoframe hummed softly, responding to her thoughts, supporting her weight. Dominic stood before her, hands outstretched, ready to catch her if she fell. "Take a step," he encouraged. "I'm right here." She did one trembling step, then another. The sensation was strange, mechanical, yet somehow part of her. She stumbled on the third step, falling forward into Dominic's arms. He caught her easily, steadying her. "I'm walking," she whispered against his chest. "Dominic, I'm walking." His arms tightened around her. "Yes, you are." That moment of triumph was shattered by an explosion that rocked the shelter. The door's integrity alarm wailed. The raiders had breached the outer defenses. "Time to go," Dominic said grimly, releasing her to grab his pack and weapons. "Go where?" Nemira asked, wobbling on her new legs. "There's nowhere." "My ship," he replied, checking his pulse rifle. "Hidden in the eastern sector. If we can reach it, we can get off this rock." Hope and fear collided in Nemira's chest. Leave the planet, go with this human to the stars. It seemed impossible, yet the alternative was death at the hands of raiders or slow starvation among the ruins. "I'll slow you down," she said, even as she gathered what few possessions mattered to her. Dominic's expression softened. "Then we'll go slow together." They slipped out through a maintenance tunnel as the raiders breached the main door. Nemira's new legs were clumsy, unpracticed, but they held. Dominic moved beside her, watchful and patient, guiding her through the labyrinth of ruins toward safety. They ran into a patrol halfway to the ship, 3 raiders armed with scavenged weapons and cruel intent. Dominic pushed Nemira behind a fallen column, returning fire with deadly precision. The exoframe responded to her fear, steadying her as they fled from cover to cover through the firefight. "Almost there," Dominic gasped, blood seeping through his bandages from the strain of combat. "See that ridge? Ship's just beyond it." Nemira saw it and saw the raiders converging from both sides, cutting off their escape. "We won't make it." Dominic's face hardened with grim resolve. "Yes, we will." He pressed a detonator into her hand. "When I give the signal, hit this, then run for the ridge. Don't stop, don't look back." "What are you?" "I need you to trust me," he interrupted, eyes locked on hers. "Like I trust you." Before she could protest, he was moving, firing in wide arcs that drew the raiders' attention. He disappeared behind a collapsed building, shouts and plasma fire following him. Seconds later, his voice crackled through her comm unit. "Now Nemira runs." She hit the detonator. Explosions bloomed across the ruins, mines Dominic had planted during their escape, strategically placed to create chaos. Under their cover, she ran, the exoframe pushing her forward with mechanical precision. Her heart hammered against her ribs, each step taking her closer to freedom or abandonment. Dominic wouldn't leave her, he had promised. The ship appeared before her, sleek despite the scars of long use, small but powerful. Its ramp was down, engines already humming with pre-flight preparation. Nemira hesitated at the threshold, turning back toward the ruins where Dominic had disappeared. "Come on," she whispered, "please." As if summoned by her plea, a figure emerged from the smoke, limping, bloodied, but unmistakably Dominic. Raiders pursued him, closing the gap with every second. Without hesitation, Nemira grabbed his discarded rifle and provided cover fire, her shots wild but effective enough to slow the pursuit. Dominic staggered up the ramp, collapsing into the ship's airlock. Nemira slammed the control panel, the ramp rising as plasma bolts struck the hull. "Get us out of here," Dominic gasped, dragging himself toward the cockpit. Together they launched the ship, breaking atmosphere as the raiders' furious signals faded behind them. The stars opened before them, endless possibilities stretching into the void. In the quiet of deep space, Nemira found Dominic in the medical bay, treating his reopened wounds. She moved with growing confidence on her new legs, each step a small miracle. "Where will we go?" she asked, helping him secure a fresh bandage. Dominic glanced up, something warm and uncertain in his copper eyes. "Anywhere, everywhere. I've been alone a long time, Nemira, if you want to come with me." "I want to," she said simply. "You gave me back my legs, Dominic, but more than that, you gave me back my future." He smiled then, a real smile that chased away the shadows that had lived in his eyes since she'd met him. Then let's find it together. As the ship hummed through the darkness between stars, Nemira thought of the alien graveyard where her family had left her to die. She had been abandoned there, broken and alone, but in that desolation she had found something unexpected. A connection that transcended species, a compassion that defied logic, a second chance she never thought possible. The stars stretched endlessly before them, and for the first time in her life, Nemira looked to the future not with dread but with hope.